Black Friday has started on Boosty. Up to 60% discount on subscription levels. Hurry up to buy at such a great price. You can watch exclusive videos of Naruto Lemon. Link in the description. Enjoy watching everyone. Description: for invention techniques, Edo Tensei Shinigami decided punish Tobirama Senju. However, his older brother, Hashirama, took all the blame and punishment upon himself. Now he must return to the world of the living and take care of Uzumaki Naruko, who is his grandniece. How will the girl's life turn out if she is raised by the first Hokage? And then Mokutan awakened. Chapter 37 Decision. Kabuto slowly approached Tsunade, who was shaking with fear. Before her eyes there were images of Nawaki and Dan, who were in a pool of their own blood. The woman was scared. Yakushi reached out his hand to her, but Senju, screaming, pushed it away, looking at the bespectacled man's face with fear. What a drama, he grinned. I deeply respected you as a talented doctor. He took a step. Don't come any closer. The woman screamed, moving back. Get out. Pull yourself together, Tsunade, Kabuto said coldly, raising his leg up. I tell you in the name of all the sannin, to which Lord Orochimaru belongs, get up and fight. And he hit the woman. Naruko rose, sitting on her knees. Spitting out blood, the girl looked at the ash-haired man. Everything was swimming before her eyes, and her body ached terribly after the strong impact with the stone. Looking forward, Uzumaki saw Shizen, who was lying unconscious. Sighing, the girl turned her gaze to the place where Tsunade was. Naruko's eyes widened from what she saw. Kabuto was standing over the woman and wanted to hit her in the face. Anger flared up in Haim Uzumaki Ikizoku. Jumping up and not paying attention to the black dots before her eyes, she rushed towards Yakushi, at the last moment intercepting his fist with her palm. You! The girl hissed, looking at the stunned shinobi. And before he had time to come to his senses, Naruko formed a Rasengan in her right palm. A blue ball, as if woven from 1,000 transparent threads, was spinning in her hand. Swinging, she hit Yakushi in the stomach with this ball with all her strength. The guy coughed up blood, feeling wild pain. Raising his trembling hand, he formed a chakra scalpel around his palm and touched the Jinchuriki's leg. The girl screamed and fell to the ground. Her right leg no longer obeyed her. It looks like you broke your right leg while playing with the snake, the ash-haired man said mockingly, towering over the fallen girl. Smoke was coming out of his healing wound on his stomach. But that's not all. I cut your thigh, and now you won't be able to move. The guy grinned. During the Chunin exam, you seemed stronger to me. You demonstrated excellent mastery of the wood release, deftly controlled water, superbly subjugated the earth, commanded lightning quite well. And you even created an iron wall. So what happened now? Are you really that weak? I'm disappointed. He shook his head. With such power, you will never become Hokage, no matter how much you strive for it. So maybe I should kill you now, so that you don't suffer in the future? He raised his leg. Children like you are stupid. They believe that they can achieve their goal, but in the end they die. With these words he wanted to hit Naruko, but she intercepted his leg, looking angrily at Yakushi. You are the only idiot here, the girl said, pushing Kabuto away and getting up. I was taught by two great people. And to die means to disgrace their efforts. Moreover, I never go back on my words, she smirked. If I said that I would become Hokage, then I will become Hokage. This is my ninja path. You shouldn't have climbed in here. The bespectacled man shook his head, throwing Uzumaki aside. What are you doing? Senju whispered in shock, looking at Naruko getting up. You shouldn't have attacked my aunt. With these words, the girl shook off her shorts, after which she folded the seal, snake. Doton. Earth tremor. She put both hands on the ground, which trembled and then began to collapse, turning into various shapes and sizes of stone blocks. Kabuto jumped to the side so that the technique would not hit him. Meanwhile, Uzumaki created a clone that dragged the shaking and surprised Tsunade to the side so that she would not fall under the opponent's techniques. Hand technique and snake and... 4 snakes appeared from the sleeve of Yakushi's jacket, which darted towards the girl, intending to grab her. However, she avoided them, jumping to the side. After carefully looking at the snake closest to her, Haim grabbed it and pulled it towards herself. By inertia, the bespectacled man flew straight at Uzumaki, who met him with a punch to the face. A crunch was heard, meaning that the recently healed nose was broken again. Raiton! Lightning rod! Lightning formed around Uzumaki's right palm. Smiling, the girl ran at Yakushi, trying to touch him with her electrolyzed palm. But the bespectacled man deftly dodged, intercepting the girl's hand just above the elbow and intending to hit her. However, the next second, an electric charge passed through the guy. Kabuto screamed, and his legs buckled. He would have fallen, but Naruko grabbed the guy's collar tightly and, holding him with one hand, began to form a blue ball in the other. Rasengan! She hit him in the stomach with this technique again. The guy flew back several meters, destroying the stone with his own back. A cloud of dust rose, and several clouds of blue chakra Naruko released when creating the Rasengan appeared in the air. Smiling, the girl straightened up and fell. There was terrible pain under her ribs. Kurama was panicking in his subconscious, releasing a lot of chakra. Tsunade, who was sitting nearby, screamed. Someone's quick steps were heard. Kabuto's voice reached Haim as if through cotton wool. Everything was as if in a fog. Opening her cloudy eyes, the girl saw through the veil the worried face of Senju, who was unbuttoning her jacket, and then put her ear to the place where the blue-eyed girl's heart was. And then a pleasant warmth enveloped her body. Kabuto said something again, to which Tsunade promised him a quick death. Little by little, her consciousness began to clear. Don't die! Don't die! Don't die, please! Just don't die! Senju screamed, crying. Don't forget about our bet. Naruko opened her eyes and forced a smile. I told you I would win. With these words she lost consciousness. The woman smiled and, taking the first necklace from her neck, lifted Uzumaki's head and tied the thread. Noticing the strange chain on the girl's neck, Senju carefully pulled it, taking out a crystal from under Naruko's black t-shirt. Tsunade's eyes widened in surprise when she saw exactly the same pendant as she had. Naruko had the second crystal with Shodai's chakra, which everyone thought was lost. She was distracted by a strange sound. Raising her head, Senju saw Orochimaru flying towards her with Kusanagi sticking out of his mouth. The body of the slug princess moved on its own. Standing abruptly in front of Uzumaki, the woman felt pain in her chest and back. Kusanagi had pierced her through. Blood spilled onto the ground. The snake pulled the glowing sword out of the body of his former teammate. Stepping aside a little, the sannin threw his head back and swallowed the weapon. Tsunade, you are the only one I did not want to kill, he said, looking at Senju. Listen to me, if this girl is left alive, she can cause you and your friends a lot of trouble. So step aside. No way. I will save her. Even if it is the last thing I do. And what will you do? Orochimaru grinned. Look at yourself, you are shaking like an aspen leaf in the wind. Why would you, one of the sannin, risk your life for some genin? By saving her, I will save my home, the village hidden in the leaves. She looked at her former friend with confidence. Do you really think that you will save the village? He looked at her skeptically. This girl is destined to become Hokage. Tsunade's voice acquired notes of tenderness. What nonsense, the man snorted. Even if so, so what? No one cares about the Hokage. Only a fool dreams of being one. The slug princess's eyes widened in surprise. Just recently, she said similar words to Naruto. If being Hokage means putting everything on the line, then I am ready to sacrifice my life. The blonde said, standing up. Well, if you are ready to part with your life for the sake of some girl, then I am at your service. The man threw his head back, and Kusanagi appeared from his mouth. With a swing of his head, he cut through Tsunade's shoulder. The woman screamed and fell to the ground. Shizen screamed, watching her teacher lying on the ground in blood. Orochimaru swung again, intending to finish off Naruko. 1 second! And the sword cut through Tsunade's back, who covered the girl with her body. A trickle of blood flowed from the Senju's mouth. You seem determined, the snake hissed. I'm impressed. Didn't I make it clear? The woman smirked. You'll only touch her over my dead body. You're already half dead. The pale-faced man kicked Tsunade away with his foot. So many unnecessary words. He slowly approached her. Look at you, you're still shaking, poor thing. You're deathly afraid of blood and you can't cope with it. There's no point in overcoming this fear. But you still try. And all for what? For some girl you don't really know. For the village you left many years ago. But the sannin was not allowed to finish. Tsunade, stopping her trembling, straightened up abruptly, kicking Orochimaru in the face. Having stood up, the woman looked at her fallen former teammate. Finally, I remembered one thing. I am the chosen one. I am the 5th Hokage of Konoha. A strange tattoo began to spread across the woman's face. Whatever you call yourself, it doesn't change anything, the snake stood up. Perhaps you have mastered your inner weakness, but not your body. You are weak. You cannot defeat me. To this, the woman only snorted, making a seal. A red glow surrounded her. The wounds began to hiss, and the tattoos began to disappear from her face. I see that I am not the only one studying new techniques, Orochimaru grinned. This is very impressive. How does it work? My chakra. I have been storing it in my head for years, and saving it for just such an occasion. Thanks to this chakra reservoir, my body is able to create new cells faster. They quickly divide, spread throughout my body, and repair any damaged organs. It is like self-reincarnation. You can use any weapon. I cannot be killed. Tsunade wiped some blood from her chin and ran 2 fingers across the palm of her right hand, leaving a bloody trail. The woman began to quickly form seals. Orochimaru jumped back to Kabuto, who, kneeling, rolled up the sleeve of the sannin's left hand and ran a bloody finger over the seal. And then began to form seals. Jiraiya, watching this, frowned. Biting the thumb of his left hand, he ran it across the palm of his right. And he too began to form seals, mentally repeating their name to himself. All 3 of them slapped their palms on the ground at the same time. At one point, the clearing was filled with clouds of smoke. When they cleared, Shizen saw 3 huge animals, an orange toad in a blue cape, a purple snake with black stripes all over its body, and a blue and white slug. Chapter 38 Battle of the Sannin. A small slug separated from Katsuya. Tsunade whispered something, and the clone of the huge animal placed Naruko on its back and crawled to the ground, where Shizen picked up the girl and carried her to safety. Gamabunta blew smoke from his mouth straight into Manda's face. The huge snake hissed, burning the toad with its gaze. I'll pierce you like a balloon, dirty toad, the reptile promised. Well, come here and try. I've wanted a snakeskin wallet for a long time. Gamabunta grinned, taking out his blade. Everyone tensed up in an instant. Katsuya was the first to lose her temper and spat out acid. Manda crawled to the side, noticing out of the corner of his eye how the stone was melting. Abruptly approaching the slug, the snake wrapped its body around it, intending to eat it. And when his fangs were a few millimeters from the animal, Gamabunta pounced on his former friend with his sword outstretched. Manda clamped the weapon in his mouth, not letting the toad take it. At the same time, the snake was squeezing Katsuya tighter and tighter. Tsunade, frowning, jumped off her summoned animal. A second, and the huge slug disintegrated into 1,000 small slugs, which, as soon as they fell to the ground, crawled in one direction, after which they again turned into a huge slug. Gamabunta let go of the sword and jumped back. The snake shook its head, opening its mouth and pointing the weapon at the toad. However, it dodged, and the blade fell to the ground not far from the slug. Senju took advantage of this and jumped on Katsuya. Tsunade, get back! Jiraiya shouted, folding the seals. Now it wouldn't hurt to have some oil, Gamabunta. Please! The giant toad grinned, taking a deep breath, then released a huge amount of oil from its mouth. Katon! Toad power! Sannin breathed a stream of fire directly into the oil, which immediately ignited. Manda, who had rushed at Gamabunta, instantly found himself in a huge wave of fire. His scales began to melt like ice cream in the sun. When Jiraiya and the toad finished their joint technique, they saw that instead of a purple snake, there was only its old, leaky shell, which was smoking. Gamabunta! Watch out! Below! The white-haired man shouted. Yes, the toad nodded. A sharp purple thing with dark rings along its entire length appeared from the ground. Toad Boss looked in surprise at what he was holding in his hands. It was Manda's tail. There was a rumble behind him, and a snake's head emerged from the ground with its mouth wide open. Manda would have devoured Gamabunta, but Tsunade, holding a heavy and huge toad sword, pierced the snake's mouth with it, pinning it to the ground. Orochimaru, who had jumped down, frowned. Fighting one sannin was very difficult. And here there were two of them. Instantly deciding what to do next, the pale-faced man opened his mouth, and the tongue that had been sticking out of his mouth lengthened and wrapped around the Senju's throat. Tsunade! Jiraiya exclaimed. I've always wondered what it would be like to wring a neck as beautiful as yours. Orochimaru laughed. Tsunade was gasping for breath. Something had to be done, otherwise she would die. Pulling the tongue that was holding her back to the side, thus giving herself the opportunity to breathe normally, the woman pulled her head out of the loop and pulled the tongue towards herself. Orochimaru's legs came off the ground and he flew towards Senju, who met him with a fist in the face. The sannin began to fall down, but the blonde, grabbing his long-suffering tongue, pulled him towards herself and threw him into the air. Jumping off the pommel of the sword, the woman flew up to Orochimaru and hit him with all her might. Then again. And again. The snake did not have time to dodge. With a kick, the blonde sent her former teammate to the ground. However, jumping onto the apple asterisk again, she pulled Orochimaru towards herself by the tongue. Take that! With this cry, the woman wanted to hit him in the face again, but missed. She spent almost all of her chakra, so now she was holding Orochimaru with great difficulty. The fear in his eyes turned to malice. Everyone has a limit, he chuckled, lisping slightly because of his tongue sticking out. Even you! Shut up! Senju screamed. She let go of her former teammate's tongue, which flew down. Jumping off the pommel, the woman kicked the pale-faced man in the stomach. Then punched him in the face. And again. And again. She hit him, sparing neither herself, nor her opponent, nor her manicure. Gathering the rest of her chakra in her fist, Tsunade sent the man flying with a beautiful right hook. Kabuto, who was watching the fight, screamed, thereby bringing Orochimaru to his senses. The pale-faced man turned in the air and landed on Manda's head. And then again began to dodge the blows of his former girlfriend. Jumping to the ground, the snake rushed away, but Senju landed right in front of him, delivering new painful blows. Leaping high into the air, she wanted to hit Orochimaru again, but he was faster and directed his tongue towards Senju, binding her. Pulling Tsunade towards him, he wanted to pierce her with Kusanagi, which appeared from his mouth, but Haim intercepted the blade with her legs, and pulling the snake towards herself, she hit him in the face with all her strength. Orochimaru flew to the side, and his tongue returned to his mouth. Senju again began to beat her former teammate. However, she did not like one thing: she was delivering blow after blow to the man, but despite this, he was still conscious and looked more or less intact. Throwing Orochimaru away with her foot, Tsunade caught her breath and began to fold seals. Chakra formed around her right fist. Approaching the sannin, who was barely standing on his feet, she swung. It's over! The game is over! With these words, she hit her former friend in the jaw. He flew several meters up and hit his head hard on the hilt of Gamabunta's sword, which remained in the ground and pierced Manda's mouth. Having fallen on the snake's head, the sannin no longer moved. Kabuto, shifting his gaze from Tsunade to his lord, did not believe his eyes. Approaching Orochimaru, the guy took his head in his hands, carefully examining the teacher's pale face. That's it, sighed Jiraiya, who was watching the fight from Gamabunta's head. He made me clumsy and inaccurate. Manda began to wail. I would have swallowed both of you, but now I won't be able to eat anything at all because of this huge hole in my mouth. It's better for you not to get in my way again." And with these words he disappeared, leaving behind clouds of smoke. Senju fell to the ground, breathing deeply. Her strength and consciousness almost left her. Looking at the place where a second ago there was a huge snake, the woman exhaled in shock, seeing two male silhouettes in the smoke. "Well, Tsunade, you will not heal my hands." "Good. I do not need you," said the heavily breathing snake Sannin. "There is another way. I will still destroy Konoha." He raised his face, and the blonde saw that Orochimaru's pale skin was peeling off, and the left eye clearly did not belong to him. "I hope we meet soon, and I will be among you again. See you soon, Tsunade." With these words, he began to slowly be sucked into the ground. "We will meet again," promised Kabuto, folding the seals. Clap! And he disappeared into the smoke. Tsunade rose to her feet and staggered. The blue crystal appeared on her forehead again. Shizen jumped up to her mentor and began to heal her. Senju looked at her ward gratefully. Two pops were heard. This was Katsuya and Gamabunta returning to Myobokuzen and Shiketsuren. Jiraiya approached the women, sitting down on the ground and waiting for his turn. During his battle with Orochimaru, this snake broke a couple of his ribs. Chapter 39. Everything is getting better. "What? You became the 5th Hokage?" Naruko was surprised. "Yeah," Tsunade smiled. They were sitting in the same bar where they met a week ago. The girl had long since come to her senses and was walking around joyfully. After all, she had won the bet. Everyone decided to celebrate the victory over Orochimaru and Kabuto. Even though they hadn't caught these two missing nin, they had forced them to flee the battlefield. And now Tsunade had decided to tell Uzumaki that Senju would now be leading the village. "I can't believe it. I lay unconscious for half an hour, and when I came to, it turned out that you had agreed to become Godame. Are you unhappy with something?" Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, watching his student's frowning face. "Shouldn't the Hokage be wise?" Naruko said thoughtfully. "But Tsunade is nasty and greedy. And she has a pretty nasty character. Moreover, the village will be mired in debt because Tsunade loves gambling and drinking sake too much. Besides, she is 55, and she uses the technique to look young. Do we need a Hokage who constantly lies?" Senju's face became angrier and angrier. A vein appeared on his forehead, and his eyes sparkled dangerously. "Are you looking for a fight?" The woman growled, looking angrily at the girl. "I don't mind," Uzumaki grinned. "Let's forget about these words and have a drink instead," suggested Shizen, who was trying to defuse the situation. "I think the sake will be very tasty." With these words, she forcibly forced her mentor to sit back on the couch and thrust a bowl of clear liquid into her hand. "Well, what did I tell you?" Blue-Eyed raised an eyebrow. "She just wants to drink." The sake cup flew to the side, smashing against the wall of the establishment. "But you know, I'm glad that you'll become the 5th, the girl smiled, looking at the angry woman. "And Hashirama will be happy when he finds out that you followed in his footsteps." With these words, Uzumaki stood up and went to the exit of the bar. "If anything, I'm at the hotel," she shouted and left. What did she mean? What does grandfather have to do with it? Tsunade was surprised, looking intently at Jiraiya. "It's better to see it. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't believe my words," the white-haired man grinned, taking a sip of the scalding liquid. Naruko ran as fast as she could through the streets of Konoha. They had returned to the village the previous evening. It was decided to temporarily house Tsunade and Shizen in the girl's house. There the women met not only representatives of the Uzumaki clan, but also a broadly smiling Hashirama, who reprimanded his granddaughter for drinking and gambling. After which he hugged the stunned Tsunade, wondering why she needed so much silicone. That's when the woman came to her senses and punched the first Hokage in the nose. The man appreciated her strength and compared his granddaughter to his wife in her youth. True, if Mito had a gentle character, then Tsunade's was reminiscent of a hedgehog's needles. To which the woman called him an old idiot. After a rather cute and strange conversation, during which they almost fought, called each other names, called each other various affectionate nicknames, cried with happiness, they finally decided to have a drink. Jiro even lent them a couple of bottles of sake. And now Naruko was looking for her aunt all over the hidden leaf. Running up the long stairs, the girl turned the corner and crashed into someone, falling on her butt. Surprised, she raised her head and saw a boy sitting on the floor. He was wearing a rather strange hat and a long blue scarf. "Watch where you're going," the boy hissed angrily, getting to his feet. "Sorry. Have you seen a blonde with big breasts and a terrible character here?" Uzumaki asked, getting up. "I saw. She went that way," the boy pointed his thumb at the corridor to the right of him. "Why do you need her?" "Tsunade has excellent medical techniques and must cure Lee." With these words, the girl rushed towards the corridor. However, there some jonin stopped her and told her to wait until Senju finished negotiations with the elders. She had to agree and stand by the door on the stairs. About half an hour later, footsteps and Tsunade's voice were heard. "Oh, how I hate all this! I wish I could sit with a cup of hot tea now, or even better with a bottle of sake," the woman said dreamily. "Not so fast." Naruko jumped out from around the corner, standing in front of the first granddaughter. "Don't you think you forgot something?" Tsunade looked at the girl in surprise. "What about Lee and Sasuke? They're still lying in the hospital. They need to be cured." "Exactly." The woman slapped her forehead. "Let's go." All three quickly went down the stairs and went to the hospital. There, Tsunade found out which ward Uchiha was in and hurried to him. Entering the ward, the woman saw an unconscious dark-haired boy. Many needles were sticking out of his arms, and a special mask helped him breathe. Next to Uchiha sat a pink-haired girl, who was currently looking at Senju in surprise. "Who are you?" she asked, mentally marveling at the beauty of the stranger. "This is Tsunade Senju. She must help Sasuke and Lee." A joyfully smiling Naruko entered the ward. The woman nodded, confirming the girl's words. Approaching the boy, she carefully examined him, after which she placed her palm, glowing with a greenish light, on his forehead. The boy's skin took on its normal color. His eyebrows twitched and a muffled wheeze escaped from his chest. Opening his cloudy eyes, Uchiha took a deep breath, removing the mask from his face with a trembling hand, as it was preventing him from breathing. With difficulty assuming a vertical position, Uchiha looked around. Sakura immediately screamed joyfully and threw herself on the boy's neck. Sasuke, not paying any attention to Haruno, looked carefully at Tsunade, then turned his gaze to the encouragingly smiling Naruko. "Lee! Now we need to cure him," Uzumaki said joyfully, then grabbed Senju by the hand and pulled him into another ward. Naruko, Tsunade, Shizen and Tuntun were walking down the corridor when Guy joined them. The man excitedly ran from one place to another, looking at the blonde with hope. When everyone turned into the next corridor, they saw Lee, who was limping and leaning on a crutch, walking forward. The boy froze, looking in surprise at the teacher, his friend, the pig, and two unfamiliar women. "Is this your student, Guy?" asked Tsunade, looking closely at the thick-browed man. "Even more. He's like a son to me." "I see," Senju frowned. "Let's go." Lee led them to his ward. There the woman sat the boy on a chair and made him take off the top part of his tights to examine him. After feeling the boy's back in several places and running her palm with chakra along it, Haim sighed. "Everyone will understand if you decide to no longer be a shinobi," she said. Everyone looked at the woman in surprise. "You're joking, right? Exaggerating?" "Right, Lady Tsunade?" Mato smiled nervously. "His spine is riddled with bone fragments." She shook her head. "It's amazing he can move at all. But he's physically incapable of performing shinobi duties." "That's..." Guy muttered. "I can't help it," Tsunade snapped. "But you're a medic," Naruko exclaimed. "You should try to perform the operation." 50-50, Senju answered. "What 50-50? The girl didn't understand. 50% that he will become a ninja again. And 50% that he will die. "I'm sorry." But there is some way to increase the percentage of becoming a shinobi, Naruko exclaimed. I don't have enough strength for that. Even if I study, it is unlikely that he will survive. What if I know how to increase the percentage of survival? Uzumaki asked quietly. Chapter 40 The Fifth Hokage. What if I know how to increase the survival rate? Uzumaki asked quietly. Do you know? Tsunade was surprised. What are you talking about? Hashirama's necklace. There are only 2 of them, right? And I have both of them. The girl looked at Kato's niece. Shizen, remember I promised you that I would return your aunt's necklace, but first I would check something? Yes, the dark-haired girl nodded. This necklace was created especially for Mito Uzumaki, my great-grandmother. As you know, Mito was a Jinchuriki, but it was difficult for her to restrain Kurama. Therefore, Hashirama decided to create 2 necklaces from green zirconium, a very rare stone. It can restrain any chakra if you first put in the energy of a person who is able to suppress it. Hashirama filled the crystal with his chakra. Mito wore it on herself, and the seal that restrained Kurama grew stronger. Even if he got out, it would be much easier to suppress his chakra. Shodai created a second crystal in case the first one was broken, which is almost impossible. However, if both crystals were brought close to each other, they would glow, as they would sense the same chakra that was in them. Hashirama had a rare gift: he could instantly regenerate. And if your lifespan is shortened during regeneration, Tsunade, then his is not. If both crystals were brought close to each other, part of their chakra was carefully taken from them and absorbed into Li, then he would be able to become a shinobi and, perhaps, would be able to use not only taijutsu, but also genjutsu and ninjutsu. This could solve the problem, said Tsunade. But where can we find a person who can control the first chakra? The one in whom Hashirama's cells are implanted. Or our friend Deer. You should be able to do it too. And of course, me. The girl looked closely at Senju. Then I will perform the operation the day after I become Hokage, the woman nodded, turning around and leaving the room. In the meantime, I'll go get some books on medicine. Naruko-Kayan. You are our savior! Guy shouted joyfully, shedding tears of joy, happiness, and relief on the floor. It cost me a lot to get the second amulet, so, Lee, you are in my debt, the girl smiled. I think I'll go home, because I need to look after Fudo. Moreover, I forgot to ask my aunt something. The girl left the room. Quickly striding along the corridors of the hospital, Naruko went to look for the Slug Princess again. If Uzumaki was not mistaken, then she should be heading either to the library or to the Hokage's office. Having decided to check the office first, since the residence was closer, the blonde hurried there. Tsunade! The girl called loudly, running up to the girl. Anything else? She looked at the girl. Yes. Who will control Hashirama's chakra? Uzumaki asked. I think grandfather himself, Senju answered, turning around and walking down the corridor. We have a lot of work to do. I need the textbook that is in the Hokage's office, as well as several textbooks from the library on the internal structure of a person. Tsunade began to list. I have a couple of books on medicine. I will look for ways to treat the spine there, the blue-eyed girl answered, following the sannin. Good, the woman nodded. I will be grateful to you. They approached the Hokage's office, the doors of which were closed. And in front of them stood 2 chunin and 2 academy students. They were shouting something, trying to reach the one who had walled himself up in the office. Senju frowned. What's going on here? She asked. The third's honorary grandson has holed himself up there, Kotetsu answered. Well, get him out of there, the woman shrugged. We're trying, but Izumo remained silent meaningfully. Uzumaki, who had been watching this conversation, smiled. 2 chunin, and they can't get some boy out of the Hokage's office. Tsunade sighed and went to the door, opening it. A creaking sound was heard, as if something heavy was being moved. Apparently, the door was blocked by a cabinet or a table. Suddenly, pots and pans flew at the blonde's head. However, Haim Senju Ikizoku easily blocked them. After that, the woman walked inside, defusing the explosive seal with her foot. Tilting her head to the right, Tsunade dodged a kunai that flew past her ear. She calmly walked up to the boy, who was curled up into a ball, and leaned over him. The third's grandson closed his eyes, expecting pain. However, Tsunade only searched the bookshelf for the right book and took it. Turning around, the sannin walked out of the office, her heels clicking. Uzumaki looked at the boy's dumbfounded face with a smile. The Senjuheim knew how to surprise. "I swear to protect Konoha for the rest of my days," Tsunade said loudly, standing on the roof of the Hokage residence. The villagers applauded. Whistles and joyful shouts were heard. Senju smiled. However, remembering the piles of papers that were now in her office, the woman shuddered. Chapter 41: Sasuke's Departure. Yawning sweetly, Uzumaki stretched. The morning began for her at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Getting out of bed, the girl trudged to the bathroom, where she rinsed herself and brushed her teeth. After that, Naruko changed into home clothes and went to the first floor. There, Hashirama was sitting and reading Kakashi's book, sipping tea. And Hatake himself was nearby. Jiraiya was actively asking readers for their opinions on his creation. Guy was standing at the stove, frying rice for the balls that Lee would later choke on. Yesterday, Rock's operation took place, and now the boy is resting in bed. Lee will be able to become a shinobi again, but first he needs to have a good rest and lie down for about 2 days. And this is difficult, since the power of youth and Guy did not allow the boy to do this calmly. Niji, Tenten, Naruko, and almost the entire hospital staff barely pushed the green beast out of his student's ward yesterday. And Lee himself was chained to the bed with belts. Smiling, Uzumaki took yesterday's onigiri out of the refrigerator and warmed them up. Having brewed some tea, the girl sat down to breakfast. While chewing her breakfast, the blonde decided that it was time to go visit Sasuke and Lee. "Go to the store on the way and buy some milk," Hashirama shouted after her. "Good." Naruko put on her shoes and left the house. Senju loved milk, especially with honey. He could drink it in liters. All the other residents of the house only sighed sadly, realizing that soon they would have to buy a new pack of milk again. Having greeted Jiro, who was passing by, the girl went to the barrier, which flared with blue light when Uzumaki passed through it. Walking along the streets, the blonde inhaled the fresh air, feeling a pleasant breeze on her skin. Entering the hospital building, Uzumaki went up to the second floor. First, she wanted to go to Roku, to check him and the belts. After walking along the long corridors, the girl stopped in front of the 40th ward. Taking a deep breath, Haim smiled and opened the door. "Here I am," she said happily, entering the ward, where Niji was also located in addition to the patient. "Hello," Hyuga smiled slightly, looking at his friend. "Yo, Naruko-chan," heard from the bed. "I already checked the belts," the brunette said when Naruko sat down next to him. "Had to fasten them again." "Niji-kun, you are cruel," Lee said sadly, looking at his teammate. "You need to lie down, otherwise you will no longer become a shinobi." "You can't strain your spine," the blonde said sternly. Lee only sighed sadly. Niji began to talk about training and a recently completed mission. Since Team 7 is not yet able to go on missions, Uzumaki temporarily joined Team 3, performing tasks with Guy, Tenten, and Niji. About half an hour later, the girl left Rock's room, wishing him a speedy recovery. Afterwards, Naruko went to the room where Sasuke was lying. Knocking on the door, Uzumaki opened the door and entered the room. The Uchiha was sitting on the bed, studying the scenery outside the window. Entering the room, the blonde sat down on a chair next to the Sharingan user. "Well, how are you feeling?" the girl asked. "Fine, Uchiha, as always, is a man of few words." "Then get well soon. After all, I want to go on missions with my team," she smiled, standing up. "Well, then I'll go." "Wait," Uchiha said unexpectedly. Naruko turned around. "Fight me." "What?" The girl was surprised. "Fight me," the brunette repeated. "I want to know how much stronger you are than me." "Why?" "I'm curious. If I can't defeat you, then I won't be able to kill Itachi," Naruto frowned. "Listen, Sasuke," she said carefully. Revenge is not the most important thing in life. Even if you get revenge, you won't get much joy. Your life will become meaningless, and I don't care, Sasuke exclaimed. The Sharingan was burning in his eyes. Fight me. Your strongest technique against mine. Okay, the girl growled. If you can't understand elementary things, then I agree to fight. Great. Let's go. The Uchiha got out of bed and went to the balcony. The boy was lucky with the ward. His balcony door opened onto the roof of the lower floor, so the Uchiha could walk outside without leaving the hospital. True, there was a utility room next to his room, and washed pillowcases, clothes, sheets, and duvet covers were constantly hung on the roof. Naruko followed Sasuke out onto the balcony. The boy stopped near the railing and stepped aside. Having folded the seals, he created Chidori in his right hand. Uzumaki created Rasengan. The brunette and the blonde simultaneously rushed from their place. Suddenly the door to the room slammed, but the opponents did not pay attention to it. Sakura, and it was she, was horrified. The girl ran forward as fast as she could, shouting at her teammates to stop. Tears appeared in Haruno's eyes from the understanding that she would not make it in time. A second before the collision of techniques, Naruko felt someone grab her wrist and throw her aside. There was a bang, an explosion, the gurgling of water, and someone's footsteps. However, the girl did not pay attention to it. Her technique hit one of the water tanks, which gushed onto the floor. Standing up, the girl shook herself off and looked at Sasuke, who was in the same position as she was, only at a different tank. Then she looked at Sakura, who was looking at her teammates with tearful eyes. And then at Kakashi, who scattered the opponents in different directions. And what was that? He raised an eyebrow. We decided to fight, answered the Uchiha, looking angrily at the mentor. In the hospital? Why? Sasuke wanted to see how much stronger I was than him, answered Naruko, shaking off the water. And did he find out? Hatake looked again at the Sharingan bearer, who was grinning triumphantly. Yes, the boy nodded, looking at the destroyed tanks. In the water reservoir that Uzumaki's technique hit, there was a small hole, and a thin stream of water was pouring out of it. And the one that Uchiha's technique hit looked like it exploded from the inside. The brunette turned around and walked away. Jumping off the roof of the first floor, the boy jumped along the branches of the trees. Turning around again, Sasuke was stunned. The tank that Naruto's Rasengan hit was completely destroyed. Iron plates stuck out in all directions, and water was dripping from them. The Uchiha was shocked. The next morning, Naruko got up early. Despite the fact that it was only 7 in the morning, and the girl went to bed at almost 1 in the morning, she still did not want to sleep. Yawning widely, Uzumaki quickly changed her clothes, washed herself, and had a snack. Leaving the house, Haim took a deep breath of fresh air. It had rained yesterday. Having passed through the barrier, the girl walked along the road, looking at the deserted streets. Suddenly, something red and pink on the bench attracted her attention. Coming closer, Uzumaki saw Haruno sleeping. Hey, Sakura, get up! The girl began to shake her teammate by the shoulder, urging her to wake up. Sasuke! The pink-haired girl exclaimed, instantly waking up and looking around. I'm Naruko, Uzumaki smiled slightly. No! Sasuke! Haruno objected. He left. Well, unlike you, he doesn't sleep on benches in the rain, no! He left the village. To Orochimaru. Sakura shook her head, jumping up from her seat. We need to tell Tsunade-sama about this. What do you mean he left? Uzumaki breathed out in amazement. How, with his feet? Sakura snapped, looking worriedly somewhere behind the blonde. I wanted to stop him yesterday, but he knocked me out and left. A tear rolled down Sakura's cheek. Chapter 42 Rescue Squad. And where can I find people for the squad in just half an hour? Shikamaru drawled lazily. Well, I know one person who can go with us, Naruko, walking next to him, shrugged. Then I know one person too. True, first he will need to be persuaded. Nara looked around the deserted street. Who are you talking about? About Choji, the brunette smiled. Even though he showed himself poorly in the qualifying battles, in fact, he has good potential, and when necessary, he will be able to show how strong he is. The boy turned his gaze to the interlocutor. And you about Niji? Yes. I can persuade him. About 5 minutes ago, Sakura told the fifth that Sasuke left the village. The Hokage ordered Shikamaru to find a squad to return the Uchiha. But he must do it in just half an hour. Naruko, as a fully combat-ready kunoichi, was immediately included in the squad. Then let's go for Choji first, and then for Niji, Uzumaki suggested. Agreed, Shikamaru nodded, taking money out of his pocket. But first, we need to buy chips. Chips? Naruko was surprised. Yeah, Nara nodded. Turning around, he turned the corner and approached the store. He quickly said something to the saleswoman, and she gave him a pack of chips. The boy handed the woman the money and approached Naruko. Opening the pack, the boy took one chip and put it in his mouth, chewing. Uzumaki looked at him in surprise. Let's go, Nara led the blonde down the street. About 5 minutes later, they were near the main mansion of the Akimichi clan. The pack of chips was almost empty. Suddenly, someone screamed loudly, and a strange brown-blue lightning bolt flew past the two shinobi, snatching a bag of chips. The last piece is mine, Choji said loudly, and it was him, putting a chip in his mouth. Hey Choji, are you coming with us on an A-rank mission? Shikamaru smiled. What kind of mission? The fat man asked. We need to bring Sasuke back to Konoha, Nara answered. I'm the team leader. Then I'm coming, Akimichi said happily. That's good. However, we need to find more people. We have 20 minutes left. The three of them headed towards the Hyuga clan's estate. Niji always got up early and went to meditate. Sometimes Uzumaki joined him, and then they would sit for 2 hours on the cold wooden floor in the morning. The kunoichi knew for sure that the Byakugan bearer was meditating on the porch of his house, so she led the representatives of the 10th team to the Hyuga clan quarter. Suddenly, a yapping Akamaru appeared right in front of Uzumaki. But recognizing her as Naruko, the puppy happily wagged his tail. Apparently, he was not offended at the girl for losing in the intermediate battles. Akamaru! Kiba's cry was heard, who was looking for his dog. Running out onto the road, he stared in surprise at Shikamaru, Choji and Naruko, whom he almost crashed into. Akamaru! He said joyfully, looking at the white puppy. Where are you going? He asked suspiciously, turning his gaze to the three shinobi. Yes, nowhere, Nara began. Sasuke left the village, and we're going to look for him, Choji answered confidentially, eating chips that appeared out of nowhere. Then I'll come with you, the dog owner said happily. There's nothing else to do anyway, and at least I'll get some exercise this way. Naruko didn't say anything, she just sighed heavily and, not paying any attention to Inuzuka, walked on. The others followed her. As Uzumaki had expected, Niji found himself on the porch of the clan head's house, where he had recently moved. The boy was sitting in the lotus position, his eyes closed. Having quickly explained the whole situation to the guards on duty at the gates of the estate, the shinobi went inside. Niji! The blonde called loudly. Hyuga didn't react at all. Nujioji! The girl jumped up to her friend, grabbing him by the shoulders and shaking him. I need your help. Urgently. What else? Hyuga opened his eyes and looked at the blue-eyed girl with displeasure. Will you go with us on an A-rank mission? The girl asked straight away. We need to return one idiot named Sasuke to the village. And what business is it of mine? The dark-haired man raised an eyebrow. Actually, none, but he is my teammate, and yours, although not a close one, but a comrade, the girl answered. Well, please help us. Who else will go? Hyuga asked, standing up. Shikamaru, Kiba, me, Choji. And you if you agree. A weak team, the Byakugan bearer sighed. Well, never mind. I'll go too. Chapter 43 4 of Sound. Please bring Sasuke back, Haruno asked, bursting into tears. A squad of 5 people stood at the village gates. Shikamaru, Naruko, Choji, Kiba and Niji were now supposed to follow the Uchiha and bring him back to Konoha with all their might. "We'll do everything we can," promised Uzumaki. "Let's go," Nara, who was the commander of their squad, ordered. Everyone nodded and followed the boy. After walking a few meters along the sandy road until the village gates disappeared, Shikamaru stopped abruptly. "So, now we're changing formation," he said. "Niji will go first. He will use his Byakugan to survey the area ahead. Kiba will be next. He, with the help of Akamaru and his sense of smell, will be able to smell the Uchiha. Next will be me. I am the commander and the brains of the team. If I get killed, the mission will most likely fail. I'll be coming up with plans and supporting you from the rear. Choji will go behind me. He will protect us from the sides. If suddenly Orochimaru sent someone to destroy the tail for Sasuke, that is, us. And Naruko will go last, she has an important task to protect our rear. Is it clear to everyone?" "Yes," the guys nodded. "Then go." Niji immediately activated the Byakugan, examining the area with it. Kiba, like Akamaru, inhaled the air all the time, sniffing Sasuke's scent and sometimes telling him to turn left or right. I'm afraid Shikamaru's assumption about destroying the tail for Sasuke was confirmed. Inuzuka frowned. "What are you talking about?" Choji was surprised. "His scent is mixed with the scents of 4 more people," the dog handler answered. "Perhaps these are the people sent to escort Sasuke to Orochimaru. I don't think the snake trusts him yet. It's likely that if necessary, these people will kill Sasuke." Uzumaki bit her lip. "In any case, we need to hurry," Shikamaru sighed. Everyone mentally agreed with the boy and picked up speed. Niji carefully peered into the forest, trying to find the sounders. Kiba sniffed. Everyone else, completely relying on their comrades, followed them unquestioningly. About half an hour passed like this. "I smell them! They're ahead!" Kiba exclaimed, sniffing. Akamaru barked, confirming his master's words. Everyone looked at each other and, hiding their chakra as much as possible, picked up speed. The closer they got to these unknown people, the stronger the desire to kill was felt in the air. Naruto shuddered. This bloodthirsty aura, left behind by unknown people, was, of course, weaker than the aura of the 9 tails, which the girl felt at their first meeting. However, if in the subconscious the aura was dulled and was not so frightening, then here everything was the opposite. "Wait," Shikamaru whispered, descending to the ground and approaching the bushes. Everyone followed his example. 4 or 5 people were standing in a small clearing, 3 or 4 guys and 1 girl. "You're F." "What the hell?" hissed Kiba, looking at the 2-headed guy. "I don't know," Hyuga shrugged. "I'm more surprised by that guy with 6 arms." "Orochimaru clearly didn't waste time in his labs," Naruko whispered. Suddenly the red-haired girl turned to the bushes where the Konoha members were sitting. Having drilled the plant with her gaze, she glanced again at her teammates and stepped aside. The fat man made several seals and put his palms to the ground, which began to crack. A second, and all 5 representatives of the Leaf Village found themselves in a stone trap. "Did you really think that we wouldn't notice surveillance?" the 6-armed man asked in a mocking tone, approaching the stone trap. "Niji," Naruko whispered quietly, trying to see at least something besides pitch darkness. "Yeah," Hyuga nodded. "Byakugan." He looked around. "The whole ground is saturated with chakra. It won't be possible to get out just like that." Uzumaki frowned. Stretching her right hand forward, she concentrated. A small blue ball, as if woven from 1,000 threads, began to appear on her palm. "Cool. We have a flashlight," Inuzuka said skeptically, examining the walls of the stone trap. "This is not a flashlight," hissed Naruko, although she mentally noted that the lighting was not bad, albeit blue. "This is my new technique. Rasengan." With these words, she hit the ball of chakra with all her might against the wall. The next second, the girl was thrown to the side. She would have hit her back hard against the opposite wall if Niji had not managed to catch her. "Thank you," whispered Uzumaki, feeling warm palms on her shoulders. Hey, and these youngsters seem to be trying to escape. A mocking female voice was heard. Okay, we'll move on, and you, Jirobo, keep an eye on them. Don't tell me what to do, idiot, the guy immediately bristled. Who are you calling an idiot, you unfinished fatso? The girl got angry. Okay, that's enough, the six-armed man stopped their squabble. Taiguya, Sakan, Yukon, let's get out of here. And you, Jirobo, keep an eye on them. Yes, the red-haired man nodded. Chapter 44-1. Looks like they left that fat guy behind, huh? They themselves went forward, Niji sighed. We need to get out of here. How? Naruko turned her gaze to the direction from which Hyuga's voice came. This stone dome took my chakra when I hit the him with Rasengan. If you don't envy dome, envy the earth? Kiba asked. Do you want to break through? Floor? Choji guessed. That's it. Gutsuga. Kiba spun around his axis at a tremendous speed, creating something similar to drill. So at full speed he crashed into land under them feet, but almost immediately the boy flew away side, hitting his back against wall. More once. Gutsuga. However, envy this time it's not to why not resulted, except that Inuzuka flew off Choji and one could say, his fall was softened. Kiba wanted to use Gatsugu again, but Nara stopped him. Enough. It's useless, you'll just waste your chakra. How to get out then? Inuzuka practically shouted in a fit of anger. Not I know. Let me think, the boy sat down land and thought about it. What are you doing? Have they gone quiet there? Have they really kicked the bucket already? Jirobo asked mockingly, pounding his fist on the wall. Yes, no way. Inuzuka shouted in answer. I see, not yet, we spent all our energy. The sound engineer laughed. It's impossible to get out of here, no matter how hard you try. Try hard. This technique will quickly take all your chakra and will pass it on to me. Do you mean to say that you are absorbing our chakra? Uzumaki was surprised. Oh yes! Even though Naruto is not, I saw it, but I could have sworn that at that moment the fat man grinned evilly. It was heard over his voice. But you know, I like your chakra the most. It's so sweet, and her so much. Finger licking good. Freak, Hyuga hissed. Naruko frowned and had a hand in wall. In this one scene for a second she felt the chakras from she is pulled out more than when she was just standing. Smiling, the girl pointed at hand with the nine-tails chakra. Literally a second later, an angry cry was heard from Jirobo, who was burned by demonic chakra. What did you do it? He shouted Nothing special, the girl bowed her head side and chuckled. Sometimes a merciless sadist woke up in her. Kiba, Shikamaru called quietly. Can you hit the wall here with your Gutsuga? I can, but here this where? The boy asked. A little to the left of where I am sitting, the genius explained. Yep. Gutsuga. Kiba spun around his axis, turning into boar and, guided by smell of Shikamaru, hit a little to the left of where he sat a few seconds ago. The wall began to crumble under the pressure of Gatsuji and broke down soon after. The bright sunlight hit the Konoha men's eyes. Squinting, Niji looked around. How? Jirobo was surprised, looking at freed captives. By according to your words you absorb our chakra with the help of this trap. But to her absorb, all the chakra should flow into one point, from which you her and take. This point of absorption is the most unprotected, therefore destroy it was easy. I just had to find this place with the help of your voice, and Kiba, using the power of Gatsuji, broke the wall. And here we are on freedom. Oh, you small! The fat man folded several seals again and put his hands on earth. Doton! Stone prison! Twice with we don't do this trick it will work, Naruko grinned, jumping back side. Listen, Shikamaru, Choji frowned, we need to get Sasuke back, right? Nara nodded. But if everyone has now entered into fight with this guy, then the rest of the sound guys will have time to leave. Maybe it would be better if one of them we will stay here and fight with this fat guy, and the rest will go forward. I understand everything, Choji, Shikamaru nodded. Then I'll leave it for now. You. Fine, Akimichi smiled. Let's go ahead. Choji will sort this out himself. With these words, the genius jumped on the nearest branch. Naruto, Neji, and Kiba followed his example. They decided to leave me this fat guy so that I could kill his? Jirobo raised an eyebrow. You better give me this girl. It's painfully delicious, no chakra. You who did you call fat, fatty? Choji narrowed his eyes. Let's go, Shikamaru whispered quietly, and all four galloped away. I'm sure of your decision? After a couple of minutes, Kiba expressed the general idea. Yes. Choji, though seems like a weakling, he himself quite strong. Especially since there's something about him yourself, combat pills? Naruko was surprised. Akimichi clan's special combat pills, corrected her Shikamaru. We don't need, for he has nothing to worry about. Now our main opponents, sound engineers. Speaking of which them, Uzumaki sighed. Among them there are none with Sasuke. About how you? Neji was surprised. She's right, Kiba nodded. He's next to not by them. It was, however, from the barrel that the six-armed man was dragging smelled very strongly of Sasuke. Are you saying that they are transferring it to some barrel? Shikamaru was surprised. Yes. Chapter 45 Unexpected Help. The rescue team caught up with the sound guys pretty quickly. Shikamaru used Henge, transforming into Jirobo. However, Tayuya, the red-haired girl with the flute, quickly saw through him, and the six-armed guy immediately walled up the Konoha guys in his web. No matter how hard they tried to get out, it was all in vain. The web turned out to be stronger than steel, and did not want to let the Genin and Shunin out at all. Neji, being in pitch darkness, activated the Byakugan. As it turned out, the web was saturated with chakra. And accordingly, only chakra could cut it. Deciding to test his guess, Hyuga used one of the clan techniques and freed himself. While the six-armed guy did not notice the prisoner's escape, the guy quickly freed the others. Thank you, Shikamaru whispered quietly, and the others nodded, thus thanking their savior. All five, including Akamaru, hid behind a tree trunk and decided what to do next. Fortunately, the sound man didn't notice the absence of the prisoners and was thinking out loud about the best way to kill them. I'll fight him, Neji decided. What? But Uzumaki wanted to object. I'm the only one who can cut this guy's web, Hyuga insisted. Neji is right. Nara agreed with him. Then we'll leave it to you. Kiba nodded, wondering what kind of opponent he would get if they continued to split up. Naruko just sighed sadly. Well, she had understood from the beginning that her main goal was Sasuke. And her comrades would deal with the sound men. Just dare to lose to him, Uzumaki shouted, hiding behind the foliage. Hyuga just smiled and went out to the six-armed one, preparing to fight. Tayuya, Sakan, and Yukon, whose names the Konoha people learned during Shikamaru's pretense, did not have time to run far. Uzumaki threw kunai with explosive seals at the sounder's feet. The opponents reacted immediately. The two-headed one squeezed the barrel tighter and picked up speed, and the girl remained standing on the branch. She brought the flute to her lips and started playing some melody, which made the surroundings turn white-black-gray. Genjutsu, Naruko guessed and immediately broke out of it, after which she freed Shikamaru and Kiba. The scarlet-haired girl, standing on the tree branch, frowned and immediately started playing a new melody. However, it broke off mid-sound. Shikamaru used shadow bonds. I'll deal with her, he said. And you go on. Okay. Kiba nodded. Good luck, Naruko shouted, leaving after Inuzuka. The last opponent remained. Two-headed Sakan and Yukon. Kiba and Naruko quickly caught up with the sound man. Uzumaki took a kunai with explosive seals from her pouch and threw them at her opponent's feet. He didn't have time to jump aside, and the blast wave got him. Cursing, the guy turned around in the air and landed on a tree pole. After looking at 2 or 3 opponents, the guy made a seal, and strange black hieroglyphs began to spread across his skin. Without losing her composure, Naruko made 3 seals. Tiger. Dog. Snake. Mokutan. Technique of entwining trees. Several thick wooden strips appeared from the trunk on which the two-headed man stood, which grabbed Sakan and Yukon. The beams entwined his arms and legs, preventing him from moving even an inch. The barrel with Sasuke inside was now in the feathers of the tree, which were lowered to the Konoha members. Naruto could only stretch out his hands to take the barrel, but literally out of nowhere a strange guy appeared, dressed the same as the sound guys. Flying in front of Naruto like a bullet, he intercepted the barrel and rushed away. What the? Uzumaki was surprised. Kiba, I'll go after him, and you stay here. Yeah, the brown-haired man nodded, looking at the sound guy climbing out of the wooden beams. Naruko rushed after the stranger, realizing with some irritation that he was many times faster, and most likely, stronger than the Uchiha's kidnappers. The sound guy broke through and ran out into a huge clearing. He turned around and, not noticing the pursuit, opened the barrel and took Sasuke out of there. The boy was unconscious, but alive. Well, if you can say so, considering that he had to die. The Uchiha opened his eyes and stared at the sound man in confusion, but relaxed when he noticed the same outfit as the sound 4. Sitting up, the Sharingan bearer looked around. Where am I? His voice sounded hoarse. Not far from Odogekure, the stranger answered. My name is Kimimaro Kagaya. I am the leader of the Sound 5. Orochimaru-san ordered me to take you to the village. However, I'm afraid you'll have to go alone from here. That blonde girl is already near the clearing. A girl? Sasuke asked again, and turning his gaze to the forest, saw Naruko jump out of it. What is she doing here? Konoha sent a squad after you, Kimimaro answered. Now go, I'll hold her off. Okay. Sasuke nodded, still in a daze. Standing up, Uchiha went in the direction that sound pointed him. At first, the Sharingan bearer walked slowly, but then, feeling the strength in his muscles, he broke into a run. Naruko wanted to rush after him, but the representative of the Kagaya clan blocked her path. Frowning, Uzumaki folded several seals, and 5 clones appeared next to her. Mokutan. Binding nest. From the ground, right under the place where Kimimaro stood, thin wooden rods began to grow, which grabbed Sound's legs and immediately began to grow, turning into a massive tree that squeezed the guy so hard that the crunch of breaking ribs was heard. The white-haired man smiled slightly, and the next second the bones broke through the tree, and Kimimaro himself got out of captivity. At the same time, several ribs were sticking out of his body. Slightly tilting his head to the side, the guy grinned, looking at the confused face of his opponent. Bones began to appear in different places from Kagaya's body, large and small, thick and thin, but very sharp. Uzumaki barely managed to dodge the unexpected attack of the guy, who was able to destroy 3 of her clones. Jumping slightly to the side, the girl began to fold seals to create a barrier, but Kimimaro managed before the last seal was folded and hit the blonde in the stomach. Grabbing Kagaya's wrist with one hand, the girl created a Rasengan in the palm of her other hand and hit the guy in the chest with it. He flew to the side, landing on his feet. Spitting out blood, the girl threw kunai with explosive seals at Kimimaro. 3 explosions thundered in a row. And before the dust had time to settle, Naruko sent her chakra underground and concentrated, mentally imagining the end result. Mokutan. Underground roots. A huge number of tree roots burst out of the ground under the feet of the 2 shinobi. Rising high into the air, the tendrils simultaneously rushed to the place where the explosions had thundered. And when the dust settled, Naruko saw that Kimimaro was pinned down by tree fetters. Approaching the boy, the girl frowned. What next? Leave him here and rush after Sasuke? What if suddenly a representative of the Kagaya clan gets out and follows her? Or stay here? Then Sasuke will leave. Sound didn't give her time to finish her thought, sharply breaking through the tree with his bones and attacking the girl, who simply did not have time to dodge. However, someone suddenly intercepted Uzumaki and threw him back. Looking at her savior, Naruko smiled slightly. Lee arrived just in time. Chapter 46 Battle with Sasuke. Naruko rose to her feet, looking at the familiar figure in green tights. Lee jumped back to the girl, looking from her to Kimimaro, and then to the empty barrel in which the Uchiha had been. "Where is Sasuke-kun?" Rock asked. "He got out of the barrel and went to Orochimaru," Uzumaki answered. "Then you go after him, and I'll deal with this guy." Lee got into a fighting stance. "He's strong," Naruko looked at her friend. "He can control his bones as he wants. Be careful." After these words, the girl ran in the direction Sasuke had gone. However, as soon as she took a couple more steps, Kaguya appeared literally behind her and tried to immobilize her, but Lee attacked the enemy in time, breaking his arm. Kimimaro hissed and jumped to the side, healing the broken bone. Lee, without a second's hesitation, closed the distance between them and began to attack the enemy with taijutsu. The last thing Naruko saw was a bone appearing from Kaguya's hand, and rock breaking it with a characteristic crunch. Forcing herself to turn away, the girl rushed forward, mentally asking Lee to win this battle, because Kimimaro Kaguya is not a weak opponent and is very dangerous. From the geography course at the Shinobi Academy and from the stories of Guy, Kakashi and Hashirama, Naruko knew that in a couple of kilometers there would be the Valley of the End, where Madara and Hashirama had once fought. "I hate this place," Kurama snorted somewhere in his subconscious. "When I remember that it was here that this pathetic Uchiha Madara was able to control me, I immediately want to find him and tear him to shreds." "Don't be afraid. I won't let you be taken under control again," Naruko promised, running straight to the huge stone head of Hashirama. On the opposite side of the waterfall stood Uchiha Sasuke. But he was somehow different. He didn't move, only looked forward. And when he turned to face Uzumaki, the girl, having strengthened her vision with chakra, was horrified. The same seals as during the Chunin exams were spreading across Sasuke's body. And the thirst for murder was so strong that it reached Naruko. "So Kimimaro couldn't detain you?" the Sharingan bearer asked hoarsely, slightly tilting his head to his left shoulder. "Lee stayed with him," Uzumaki answered, peering at Sasuke and trying to understand what he would do next. The fact that Uchiha would never return to Konoha was clear even to an idiot. It would be difficult to convince him otherwise. Of course, it was possible to bring him back by force, but it wouldn't make things any easier for anyone. Uzumaki had understood this from the very beginning of their campaign, which promised to be a failure from the moment he announced it. However, Naruko couldn't do nothing either. It wasn't in her principles. She was used to going all the way and keeping her promises, even though she had said she would do everything she could. However, now, standing on the head of Hashirama's statue and looking straight at Sasuke, the girl didn't know what to do next. Should she let him go to Orochimaru? Bring him to the village by force? Or... She didn't want to think about that. Or... Of course, murders were commonplace in the shinobi world, but killing your own comrade, even though you weren't particularly friendly with him, was difficult. "So what are you going to do now?" Sasuke asked. "Will you try to stop me?" "Why, yes." Naruko nodded. If Uzumaki started something, she would see it through to the end. Moreover, the girl could not allow her friends and comrades, fighting dangerous opponents, to almost sacrifice their lives so that she, Naruko, would just let this Uchiha go to Orochimaru. Without further delay, the girl ran over Hashirama's head and, having gathered chakra into her feet, pushed off the stone, overcoming the distance between the statues of the founders of Konoha in one jump. Having landed on the Uchiha and, by inertia having traveled with him and on him for a couple of meters, the girl had already raised her hand to strike, but the boy grabbed her by the collar of her jacket and sent her flying to the water surface of the lake formed by the waterfall. However, the girl did not intend to hurt herself and, turning in the air, pushed off the water with her feet and jumped high up, attacking the attacking Uchiha with her foot. Both flew in different directions. Without losing his composure, Sasuke pulled out a kunai from his pouch, attacking Naruko, who was standing on the water. The girl deftly dodged. And then, taking out 8 shuriken, she redirected the Uchiha's weapon's flight direction, so that he himself had to dodge his own kunai. Something flashed in the sun, and the next second Naruko was chained to a stone by a fishing line. There was no way to move, just as there was no way to make seals. The end of the fishing line was with Sasuke, who was standing at a distance. Grinning, the boy made seals and a stream of fire passed along the fishing line. Roaring from her helplessness, Naruko somehow pulled out a seal she had prepared in advance from her pocket and poured her chakra into it. A powerful barrier surrounded Uzumaki, not letting the fire get to her and simultaneously destroying the fishing lines holding the girl back. Having charged the seal with chakra, which should have been enough for a couple more minutes, the girl jumped straight to Sasuke through the blinding fire, delivering strong blows to the stomach and jaw of the brunette, who was not expecting it. And then, knocking Uchiha off his feet with a precise kick, Uzumaki grabbed the boy tightly by the wrists, literally digging into his skin with her small nails. "You're just a moral freak who can't see beyond his nose," the girl hissed, abruptly letting go of Uchiha, thereby avoiding his foot strike to her stomach. "And you're just a stupid girl who can only turn up her nose and consider herself better than everyone else," Uchiha answered, delivering a new blow. "If you're talking about Sakura, then she's not here," Uzumaki grinned, parrying the blow and delivering her elbow to the side. Jumping aside, the girl folded 3 seals. Mokuton! Wood cloning! Several tree branches appeared from Naruko's body, which immediately began to transform into Uzumaki herself. And soon, there was not one Naruko standing in front of Sasuke, but 3. "Do you want to defeat me with pathetic clones?" Sasuke grinned. "They would fall apart from the first blow." "Don't compare them to the shadow ones," the girl advised, attacking the Uchiha. Now the Sharingan bearer had to dodge not one opponent, but 3 at once. It was lucky that the Sharingan with 3 Tomo perfectly foresaw all the next actions of the opponents. True, the strange blue ball called Rasengan still surprised Sasuke. And the huge crater left after using this technique angered him. When did this girl manage to become even stronger? However, forcing himself to concentrate on Uzumaki, the guy began to be more agile and better at parrying her blows, and the power of the cursed seal gave him strength and chakra. Now Uchiha's taijutsu was stronger, and his fire techniques were more powerful. Naruko kept dodging, trying to inflict as much damage on Sasuke as possible. However, she realized that slowly but surely, Uchiha was pushing her back. Chapter 47 Broken Bonds. Sasuke grabbed Naruko by the legs and threw her right into the stone part of the waterfall. Having broken several stones, Naruko hissed, trying to hold back a cry of pain. Breaking stones with your body is still very painful. Having spat out blood, the girl stood up. Leaning on the stones, she spat out blood. Her ribs hurt terribly. It seems she broke a couple. Lucky that she has Kurama, whose chakra perfectly heals her body. "What a kid," growled the fox. "Calm down," asked Naruko. "Kurama, can you lend me some of your chakra?" "It's not safe," the Ninetales doubted. "I don't care," the girl shook her head. "I don't have as much chakra left as before. Underground roots is still a rather chakra-consuming technique for me. I have practically no strength left." "Okay, but be careful." Kurama released chakra from his cage, which immediately enveloped the girl. "Thank you," Naruko thanked, opening her scarlet eyes with a black vertical pupil. The girl's body seemed to have gained lightness, the broken bones stopped hurting, and there was a feeling as if she could now move mountains. The muscles contracted and relaxed pleasantly, and the fox's hot chakra spread at a furious speed across the blonde's SCS. The stripes on her cheeks became even more visible. Uzumaki inhaled fresh air through her slightly open mouth. A fong flashed in the sun. Abruptly tearing herself away, the girl in an instant found herself next to Sasuke and hit him with all her might, sending the boy into a stone statue of Madara. After which the blonde landed on one of the plates, in Hashirama's armor, carefully watching the place where the Uchiha was. A column of black and terrifying chakra rose into the sky. It was impossible to hear anything from Sasuke because of the roaring water, but it seemed to Naruto that his slow steps were heard throughout the Valley of the End. And a second later, the girl saw the Uchiha. Or rather, something that used to be Sasuke. His hair turned blue, and a huge black cross appeared on the bridge of his nose, his skin acquired a gray tint, and a wing protruded from his back, more like an eagle's paw with membranes. Saliva dripped from the boy's mouth, and his gaze became insanely frightening. like a psychopath with terrible strength. He screamed in pain, while at the same time reveling in the feeling of power throughout his body. Without saying a word, Sasuke attacked the Uzumaki. They clashed in close combat. Both fought at great speed, which is why their silhouettes seemed blurry. A quick block and a kick to the right. A dodge and an attempt at a sweep. A jump into the air and a deafening explosion from the explosive seals. It seemed that two monsters were fighting in the air, practically without touching either the ground or the water. Echoes of powerful chakra could be felt for many kilometers around, and the ki emitted by the opponents would have nailed any ordinary person to the ground, so much was the thirst for blood and battles in the air. This is bad. He is much stronger than usual with this thing, thought Uzumaki. Orochimaru put this seal on him, right? Kyuubi asked. True, the girl nodded. Then we need to somehow block this seal so that the Uchiha returns to his previous form. For example, give him some of your chakra? The girl suggested. And this will not hurt him much? Your chakra is poisonous. It certainly won't be worse for him. Kurama shrugged his shoulders, grinning like a real sadist. Then we will do this, Naruko sighed. Only you have 2 minutes left, your body is too weak now, and my chakra may not work well on it. If you exceed this time limit, you will faint for the next day, at least, warned the fox. I see, the girl nodded. A lot can be done in 2 minutes. And defeat a strong opponent too. At least, that's what Uzumaki hoped for. Pushing off the stones, she prepared to reflect the blow of the Uchiha who jumped towards her. Now the most important thing was to touch his left shoulder and transfer some of Kurama's chakra to him, while simultaneously blocking the boy's blows. The time allotted to the girl seemed to be running at full speed. Just now she had 2 whole minutes left, and now only 30 seconds. Of course, it is possible to use the Kyuubi's chakra for a little longer, but this threatened not only a multi-day sleep, but also pain throughout the body, as well as terrible fatigue and weakness for the next month. Having landed on the depression she had made in the Hashirama statue, the girl began to create a Rasengan in her right hand. Sasuke did the same maneuver, only creating a Chidori. At the same time, the opponents pushed off the ground and flew at each other, putting their hands forward with their strongest techniques. Naruko began to understand with horror that the fox's veil was beginning to weaken. And mentally the girl asked for enough Kyuubi chakra for a couple more seconds. The techniques collided. A small black sphere appeared between the opponent's hands, and began to quickly increase in size. Naruko stretched out her hand and, touching Sasuke's shoulder, poured the rest of Kurama's chakra into it. After which both were absorbed by light bright, blinding the eyes. And as soon as the sphere became so huge that it filled the distance from one end of the waterfall to the other, this light burst out, quietly destroying the sphere. A bright flash and both opponents were lying on cold, wet stones. Sasuke was the first to wake up. Opening his eyes, Uchiha looked around. The valley of the end looked as if there had been no fight. The only reminders of it were the 2 depressions in the statues of Hashirama and Madara. Turning his head to the side, the Sharingan bearer saw Uzumaki. She was lying on her back, her arms spread out to the sides, peacefully snoring. After sitting for a couple more seconds, Sasuke got up and wandered towards where Orochimaru's henchmen were supposed to be waiting for him. His body ached terribly, the boy was shivering, and his legs were hanging. However, he couldn't stop now. Uchiha didn't know how long he had been lying there, but he knew perfectly well that the Konoha people could come here at any second. Sasuke staggered forward. After 200 meters, he saw Kabuto with a couple of sound men. He nodded to all 4 in greeting, and Uchiha approached them. Yakushi started to say something, noticing the boy's clearly unhealthy appearance. However, the Sharingan bearer did not listen to him. Let's go to Orochimaru already, he said and, without turning around, took the first step forward. The others only exchanged glances and followed him. Chapter 48, Leaving. Sitting up in bed, Naruko looked around, trying to figure out where she was and what had happened. The white walls, the beeping heartbeat machine, and the smell of medicine told the girl that she was in a hospital. Uzumaki tried to remember how she ended up here. However, Her memories only retained a bright light and the darkness that followed it. What happened after that Naruko did not know. Suddenly, the door of the room where Naruko was lying swung open, and Tsunade entered the room. Kicking a chair closer to Uzumaki's bed, the woman sat down and, crossing her arms under her chest, began to stare at Naruko, which sent a chill down her spine. "What happened?" Uzumaki finally asked. "What happened?" The voice of the princess of the Senju clan was saturated with poison and anger. "Are you asking what happened?" The woman frowned even more. "I should be the one asking what happened." She finally lost her temper, jumping up from her seat and starting to pace the patient's room, waving her arms emotionally. "So, I'm sending you after Sasuke Uchiha. And after you, a team of Sand and Medic Nin. And what do I get?" Senju screamed. "Sasuke Uchiha goes to Orochimaru, and they bring me a mortally wounded Niji Hyuga, a barely alive Akimichi Choji with damaged chakra channels, Inazuka Kiba on his last legs, Shikamaru Nara with broken ribs and a couple of fingers, Rock Lee with multiple injuries and broken bones. And this is after his operation. And you, wounded and barely alive. Chakra channels are seriously damaged, for broken ribs, bruises all over your body, a dislocated right arm, almost a concussion, cracks in your shoulder blades and multiple deep wounds. The doctors are barely keeping you alive, some are still being treated. And you ask what's going on?" The woman plopped down on a chair with a thud, demanding an excuse from Uzumaki. And Naruko sat as if struck by lightning. Are the others really that badly injured? After all, the Sound 5 can't be that strong. Okay, Tsunade took a deep breath, calming down. You're almost healthy, but I forbid you from any kind of stress for 3 weeks. The bones need to completely heal. Especially on the shoulder blades. You hit your back on the rocks, right? The woman grinned. In any case, you'll live. And for a long time. Any questions? Can I check how the others are? In general, it's forbidden. But that won't stop you. So get dressed, and now we'll go to the 6th department for Fuin intensive care. Everyone was gathered there. Naruko got out of bed and began to dress in a dress that had been lying on a nearby chair. Pulling off her hospital clothes, Uzumaki turned her gaze to the 5th. And who is in this department now? The girl asked, feeling an unpleasant sucking sensation in the pit of her stomach. Niji Hyuga. The blonde froze. Niji? Niji is lying there? Uzumaki felt sick. Of course, she heard Tsunade's words that Niji was mortally wounded. But few in reanimation. This meant that it was impossible to heal a friend with just chakra. Something more and stronger was needed here. Something that could literally pull the Hyuga out of the next world. Let's hurry up, Tsunade irritably hurried the girl. Huh? Yeah, Uzumaki froze and, quickly pulling on her dress, put on sandals and hurried after Senju. Her chest was unpleasantly constricted by the thought that Niji was sent to Fuin reanimation. Closing her eyes for a second, Naruko took a deep breath, calming down. If Tsunade was here, then the one responsible for the Fuin intensive care unit was Shizen. And all the best seal masters were conducting it Uzumaki. After a while, the treasured turn appeared, leading to the corridor at the 6th Fuin intensive care unit. Turning the corner, Naruko swallowed. Choji was sitting in a wheelchair and chewing another pack of chips. He had a huge bandage on his cheek, and his hands were wrapped in bandages. Shikamaru, although too pale and depressed, was fine, except for his bandaged hand. Lee, like Choji, was sitting in a wheelchair. His legs and arms were in plaster. And something told Uzumaki that the doctors did this not because of the boy's wounds, but so that he would not move so actively. Kiba looked the best of all, but the elastic bandage on the boy's knees literally said that Inazuki had problems with his knees. The 3 from Sand looked, perhaps, the healthiest. Only some parts of their bodies were bandaged. And Kankuro had a huge green spot on his forehead. The medics had slightly overdone it with the green stuff. All 5 turned to Uzumaki when she approached the bench. Tsunade, nodding to the genin and shunin, hurried to the other patients. How are you? The blonde asked quietly, feeling all the guilt for what had happened. Alive, Kiba shrugged. And how are you? Yeah, I seem to be okay too. The girl sat down on the bench next to Temari. How long have they been treating Niji there? 2 days and a whole night, came the answer. Naruto nodded and looked down at the floor, trying not to cry. It was all because of her. Her friends tried so hard to pave the way for her to Sasuke, and not only did she lose to him, she also couldn't bring him back to Konoha. It's his choice, the girl heard Gaara's confident but quiet voice. We did everything we could. And it's not your fault that we were injured, we agreed to it ourselves, the red-haired man smiled. Who are you? And where did you put Gaara? Uzumaki asked in surprise, looking at the Jinchuriki with wide eyes. Sabaka wanted to answer something, but the door leading to the Fuin intensive care unit swung open. She immediately looked at the tired but happy Shizen. Niji is alive and relatively healthy. He must not be disturbed for the next 2 weeks. I will allow visits from the 16th. Is that clear to everyone? The Genin and Chunin nodded. Now march to the wards. There's no need to walk around the hospital. Naruko knocked on the door and, hearing permission to enter, opened it and stepped into Niji's room. Hyuga was lying on the bed and reading some book. Looking at the door, the boy smiled softly. Approaching the capital next to the patient's bed, the girl put a sunflower in a vase of water. How are you feeling? The blonde asked, still not turning to Hyuga. Not bad. True, my neck hurts terribly, the boy grinned. How are you? I heard they brought you all wounded. I'm already healthy, and biting her lip, the girl turned to her friend, looking straight into his violet eyes. I'm leaving Konoha. For a while, of course. What? Niji was surprised, almost jumping out of bed, but the girl gently put him back. I'm saying that I won't be around for 3 years, the blonde snorted, trying to hide her sadness behind cheerfulness. Sasuke will be training with Orochimaru now. And I need to get stronger to defeat him next time. And since Ero-san can't stay in one place all the time, I'll have to go with him. The girl leaned against the nightstand and stared thoughtfully at the ceiling. And there was a rumor in the world that a certain organization called Akatsuki, which consists of criminals of at least S class, is trying to catch all the Jinchuriki. I need to run to keep the village safe. That's why I came by now to say goodbye to you. Get well soon, and be at least a Chunin by the time I get here. Silence reigned. Neither Uzumaki nor Hyuga knew what to say. Well, I guess I'll go. Bye. Waving goodbye, the girl hurried away. Become much stronger, okay? Hyuga shouted after her. I'll be waiting for your return. Naruko hurried out of the hospital and ran at full speed to the village gates. She was already 5 minutes late. Jiraiya and Hashirama, who had gone with them, were waiting for her at the wooden gates. As well as Kakashi, the third team, Sakura, Tsunade, some representatives of the Uzumaki clan, Tuntun, Shizen, Shikamaru, Choji and Kiba. Well, finally! Jiraiya exclaimed upon seeing the girl. Sorry, I was just saying goodbye to Niji. Okay then, Jiraiya nodded, smiling strangely. Let's go already. Yeah. Naruko nodded. Bye everyone. And waving to her friends, she hurried after the departing sannin. Hashirama walked next to Naruko.